Call the meeting to order and ask Trina McManus to do a roll call.
Yes, Mayor Dropkin,
Here.
Commissioner Tate,
Here.
Commissioner Tankersley,
Here.
Commissioner Gormley,
Here.
Commissioner Christensen.
Here.
Excellent. Moving into our consent agenda, does any commissioner wish to have any item pulled off the consent agenda?
Yes, I would like to have the installation of radio equipment pulled off, please. I have a question about it.
Okay, so we will move item C down to the next agenda item. And I would entertain a motion to pass the consent agenda as modified.
So moved.
A motion from Commissioner Gormley.
Second.
And a second from Chair Tate. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And
Aye.
opposed, say nay. The consent agenda is adopted unanimously. And now we'll go to item C, the installation of radio equipment. And I would invite Chad Hudson up to answer any questions. Thank you. And Commissioner Tankersley.
Yes, thank you, Chad. I have a question. It may be a Sam question even. It looks like we had an email request and 2 failures to respond for the other people bidding. Is that sufficient? Maybe we at least need to have in the record which email addresses we use, so somebody doesn't say later we used the wrong email address? I was just concerned about that. So just
Well,
put it.
we can certainly add, I mean, you can get that information to us.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
That's all I need.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe what we'll do is,
Well, I mean, I could move to do this, to approve this condition on staff putting in the email addresses we used for the record.
Yeah, we have a plan holders list for all of it, for every solicitation we send out, so,
Okay, because I was just concerned because it said this was the only record here.
yeah.
Do you want to make that motion?
Yes, so I move that we approve item C, the installation of radio equipment, making the findings that need to make, subject to staff putting into the record the email addresses that were used for the 2 unsuccessful attempts to
Yeah,
contact.
absolutely.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. I have a motion by Commissioner Tankersley and a second by Commissioner Gormley. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. And the motion passes unanimously.
Thanks, Jack.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have commissioners had an opportunity to review accounts payable and purchasing reports, and are there any questions?
No questions.
All right, thank you. And then we will now move into our partner reports. And so I would, well, do we have Bruce on the line or?
He is not
Yeah, for Mr. Keller.
on Zoom. He's not there in the room either. I will give him a call and maybe we can come.
Okay,
Oh,
so
he just popped into the waiting room. One second.
well, what amazing timing.
Here he comes.
Mr. Keller, you're up.
All right, Mr. Keller, can you hear us all right?
Yes, good evening. Can you hear me?
We certainly can, and your timing is perfect. We are ready to move into your report.
Okay. Well, good evening. Thank you, Mayor. The 550 Road number 3 sale is in full swing. Bighorn Logging currently cutting, logging, trucking from that sale, which was purchased by Stimson. Roughly 52 loads have been shipped. I apologize for the typo there, not to Herbert, but to Stimson and other destinations. They're taking some of the small wood themselves, most all the large wood, and then they peddle some of it to Boise and pulp outlets and so on. 52 loads add up to right around 300,000 feet, and that's an estimated value to date we've received of a little under $200,000. A lot of road project work associated with this sale in the 500 and 550 roads, rocking, grading, ditch work as is necessary to facilitate operations. There was a large, not too large, but a decent size chunk of the road that had given way over the winter. And so it wasn't a big project, but it did close the road in that section. So we fixed that in the course of what they're doing out there. So things are going well with that sale. The 300-401 road sale, Boise's indicated they'll harvest that sale in 2025. That was a 2-year contract. And then working on this Haskins Culvert project with Water and Light staff, where the road had failed above the culvert there at Haskins, right below the treatment plant. And so the road failed, and then that exposed the deteriorated culvert. And so we're working on that as fast as we can to get the necessary permitting in place to be able to fix that as soon as possible. One way that is getting facilitated quicker is by doing this permit process through ODF, which we can do because that's considered a forest road there. So that's the route we're taking. And so that notification should be approved by the middle of June. And so we do have the go ahead to work outside the spring work period that's usually in the middle of summer. If we can get everything in order in time, we got to order a 20-foot wide culvert there to replace the existing one. So a few things to fall together before we can get going, but everything's moving along. So any questions?
Yes, we have a question from Commissioner Gormley.
Brett, help me understand here. Under your sentence, you've written Bighorn Logging is currently cutting, logging, and trucking the sale, which was purchased by Stimson. Roughly 52 loads have been shipped to Herbert.
That was a typo.
Yeah, that's
Your typo.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Ed.
Okay. No problem. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Commissioner Tankersley.
And Brent, I have a quick, I think it's a follow-up question. Am I correct that you were gonna maybe have somebody from your office brief us to the long-term ramifications of the new rules about harvest from Oregon?
Yep, I've just about got that information pulled together. So
Okay,
yeah, that is definitely in the works. Yep.
great. Okay, thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I'll have something for sure in the June letter.
Great, thank you.
You
Mr.
bet.
Christensen, any questions?
No, not at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Keller. And we'll now move into staff reports, starting with our general manager, John Deeds. I also note that I know it's early, but this conversation might take some time. So if anybody wants to get dinner, there is dinner available as well. And with that, I will turn it over to you, Mr. Deeds.
So first I'll ask if there's any questions on the memo. I know I talked to a couple of commissioners. So there is some significant transmission constraints within the Portland area. Those would be primarily what they call south of the Alston cut plain, which Alston is a substation on the north side, or that would be the south side of the Longview area across the river from the Northview. But there's also constraints in the Portland, primarily Hillsborough area, with a lot of the transmission looking at going to essentially the Hillsborough area for AI, artificial intelligence. Number of server farms being built in that area. PG has had significant requests for interconnection to their grid, which obviously impacts BPA because the main BPA substation that serves us is Keeler, which is in Hillsborough. And so there's a lot of transmission constraints in that area. I think the Portland area is the second most constrained area in their system. So that then facilitated Forest Grove was had an interconnect request into BPA for 190 megawatts. That request was denied until 2038 because they could not get transmission to Forest Grove until 2038. which then obviously made staff concerned with the fact that since we're interconnected in that with Forest Grove and BPA, does that impact McMinnville as well? And so what staff has done is gone ahead and essentially done a line and load interconnect request with BPA to actually see what for 50 megawatts at the Innovation Center, actually, to see what capacity we have available here.
What's
So
a
that-
line and load?
Line and load interconnect request, that's basically saying, hey, we're gonna have this load coming in, can you serve the load? And identify that, and then it'll go into our load forecast as well.
And John, can I ask a clarifying question? So when you say Innovation Center, you mean the campus, the 200 acres?
Yes,
And so you've submitted a scenario for
Correct.
their response to it? Would it be possible for you to share that scenario? As you may know, I'm leading the Innovation Campus master planning process, and I think that information, we're obviously inviting Water and Light to the table on that process, but I think as you're doing this, at the same time, we're going to be answering some other questions about that site. So I want to make sure that there's some coordination there.
so we have asked for 50 megawatts at the site,
Okay. Okay.
so.
And the timing for that response is expected.
Do you know what the timing is, Brent? Remember? It's it could be probably 6 months before we know.
Okay, excellent. That's it's good to know that that's on the horizon.
And so we
Thank you.
still are planning to go ahead with construction of a substation at the site.
Yeah.
Regardless.
Yep.
Because we
Right.
need the substation to serve even the existing infrastructure we have out there today.
And what the example, if the example that you've shared is not that they couldn't fulfill the order, if you will, from Forest Grove, it's that the timing did
Correct.
not benefit the need in Forest Grove, so that there was a
Correct.
longer horizon to serve that capacity.
It was 15 years, which no business is going to wait 15 years to build something.
Right. Right. So they had a bird in hand.
Yeah, they actually had purchased the property.
The city had.
No, yeah, not the city, but
Oh, the bird. Okay.
yes, the bird.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it.
John, in lieu of all that, is there any gas turbines that you could buy that don't take a discharge permit or anything?
Not that I'm aware of, because that's going to
The
be,
cogen plants or anything that are,
that's not going to be anything fossil fuel related is going to be almost impossible to permit.
Okay.
So the other thing we've done is we actually met with Forest Grove, Columbia River PUD, and McMinnville yesterday to talk about what possible alternatives we may have to actually building something essentially outside of BPA.
Transmission.
Transmission, yes, transmission to get future load infrastructure here that we could serve that load. So
do you think, I sent you a note earlier, I know you're busy. Do you have any opportunities with water at the dams? And if so, what capacity? I mean, is it 10, could we do 10 megawatts? 20
yeah, I think
megawatts?
that's actually in our IRP that we're gonna actually share with the commission in June.
And we've talked a little bit about inline generation as well, especially as we're doing these big replacement projects.
But those are very small kilowatts. We're not, what we need is megawatts, so much bigger than.
So you'll have something for us in June then, that'll,
I think that's in the IRP, if I remember.
okay.
So
And do you think, I mean, we talked about this 20 years ago, and it was like, don't come near us.
It's,
Have the thoughts changed and the views towards us doing something?
I don't think it's the views, it's the economics.
Okay,
The way power prices are still low enough that doesn't make sense.
but, yeah,
That may change, yeah, exactly, as time moves on.
crazy. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
So you met with Emerald PUD in Forest Grove, you said?
Columbia River PUD. St. Helens, they're in St. Helens, Scappoose. And we may actually be talking with Tillamook and Alaska as well.
And John, as you and I talked about it, the transmission constraints seem to be mostly federal, but there is some state as well. So you were going to attempt to find a possible federal assistance, and then we could go through NWPPA and
Right.
APPA to try to have the
Permitting
region do it
reform.
with
Yes.
permitting reform, yeah,
That-
for the transmission lines,
Both federal and state.
yeah.
That state is equally challenging.
So it'd be something where we could, if we group together with other utilities like you're already doing, there's a better chance of success, I think.
Especially with, you know, the push for more transmission because of electrification.
Yeah.
The transportation.
Yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Yes, done with that one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's it?
Yeah.
Okay, well, not as long as I thought.
Yeah.
Right.
So if I could, my assumption, John, is that you're gonna keep us posted
Yes.
on this,
Yes,
these activities as they occur.
yes. We're talking right now about possibly some type, we may end up forming a group similar to the WIWA group with an IGA
All right,
to look at potential options.
okay, thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you. We'd now welcome Jamie Phillips, our Power Resource Manager.
Good evening, thank you. Okay. So, for you this evening, I have, some updates on BPA processes that are currently underway, specifically surrounding BPA's provider of choice process and the corresponding, rate design for the next power contracts, post 2028. So for the last couple of years, BPA has engaged with customers and stakeholders to develop a policy framework for power service after the current regional dialogue contracts expire in 2028. And that final policy was published in March. And now we've moved into contract development phase. And that looks like regular workshops with BPA and customers, working through section by section of the policy and forming a contract. And that'll continue through next February. And then at which point BPA will develop contract templates to offer to customers into next summer and fall, and with the expectation that contracts will be signed by the end of calendar year 2025. Some major elements of the contracts will look similar to what we have today with some exceptions, but we'll continue with a tiered rate construct. So BPA will continue to allocate costs to tier 1 cost pool and tier 2 cost pools. And so that's similar to what we have today. They have committed to fixing the system size to 7,250 average megawatts. That's preference power offered to customers at a tier 1 rate. And that will be allocated based on contract high water marks that will be calculated in 2026 for the full contract period, and will eliminate rate period high water marks, which is what is done today. Every 2 years, BPA recalibrates the output of the federal hydro system, and that then is allocated to customers. So there's some fluctuation in our high water marks every 2 years for our contracts. The next
Quick question, please, Jamie. Yep. How does the 7,250 average megawatts compare to today's size of the Bonneville system?
It's a little more. Currently, we're around 6,900.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. And BPA is committed to that amount even if they need to augment to get to 7,250 with purchases. So there are some factors that will feed into the contract high water mark calculation that we're still working through, and that will continue that process. One of which is the treatment of non-federal resources. We currently have two. We have the Grant County hydro projects and the Riverbend gas plant that reduce our reduce our retail load and factor into our net requirement for BPA. So the treatment of those in the high water mark has some implications for McMinnville, particularly with Riverbend, because that purchase agreement expires in 2030. So it's accounted for in the calculation, yet then it goes away in 2 years. So those are things that we're working through with BPA, and we'll continue to dialogue with our account executive, and we'll likely be back to the commission to have some further discussions on that resource. BPA plans to offer similar products, load following products, a slice block product, and a block product. McMinnville, because of the nature of our load with the steel mill, really we just have one option, and that's a load following product. So that means that BPA meets our hourly load and capacity needs. And with the melt shop at the steel mill, we have those very high peaks that BPA can meet that load with that product. And then also for future discussion will be how McMinnville decides to serve our above high water mark load, which could be a BPA tier 2 product or non-federal resources that we currently don't have. The proposed contract term is for 19 years with 16 years of power delivery. So that's as expected. So that kind of summarizes the high points on the post 2028 provider of choice contract development. And again, I'll be back with more to come on that. To go along with that is what BPA has coined the public rate design methodology, and that's the rate design that it will accompany the contract. Currently, we have what's called the tiered rate methodology. So it's replacing the TRM with very similar components. There are some shifts that BPA has made as far as currently we have a customer charge which captures the majority of the energy costs and for the tier 1 products. And BPA is proposing to move away from that and to $1 per megawatt hour rate on all energy. So currently they convert our energy or our allocation into a tier 1 cost allocator, which is just a billing determinant for energy. So they're proposing to simplify it really with a $1 per megawatt hour rate on energy. Also some proposed revisions to demand charges. The biggest of which for McMinnville is the removal of contract demand quantities, CDQs. And CDQs were a sort of a historic allocation based on loads and demands that were intended to help reduce that demand cost to the utility, that marginal demand cost. And that has benefited McMinnville because of the nature of our loads. And so it has reduced our demand costs over the years. With the removal of that component of the demand calculation, it changes things a little bit for us, but BPA has also proposed what they're calling a rate impact credit, which is designed to kind of mitigate rate impacts to customers, particularly with the removal of CDQs. So there's some elements there that are new, and we're still working through the implications for McMinnville, and we'll continue to do so and continue to participate in the conversations with BPA, make sure we understand how this applies to us. And we have we have good advocacy with our trade groups, with Public Power Council and Northwest Requirements Utilities representing customers like us. So it is a robust conversation in these workshops on these subjects, and a lot of customer feedback being provided to BPA. So still kind of working through how that will affect McMinnville, but we'll continue to track it and come back to the commission with updates. And in the more near term, BPA is kicking off their BP 26 rate case. That will be a 3-year rate case as compared to the previous 2-year rate periods, to finish out the contract term. So that will that is currently underway and will result in an initial proposal this fall with final record of decision next summer. So that was a lot, and that's there's plenty more to come, and I'll just mention that in addition to this, BPA has other processes ongoing that overlap and inform some of these decisions, particularly with the residential exchange settlement. That will impact rates. That's an effort that's currently underway to negotiate with the investor-owned utilities post 2028. Also, BPA's resource program, which kind of outlines the need for resources in the region and how BPA intends to meet those needs. That's a big one. We need to know that. So that's ongoing as well. And as John mentioned, the transmission constraints feed into all of these conversations too. So a lot going on. I want to give the commission a little bit of an update and maybe a heads up of what's to come in your near future.
So one of the things that staff's talked about is actually maybe starting monthly workshops with the commission on specific topics related to this contract. So the question for the commission is there interest in doing that?
I'm interested.
So, okay, well, we'll start working on scheduling those then.
Okay, great.
Thank you. From Riverbend, that we'll say there's X amount of energy out there, and it's meant to be declining in the science. So do you have any idea where we're at? Will they at 28 or 30 basically be out of, or will it be so poor quality they can't run the generators? Or
well, that's unknown. I can't say that for sure. I will offer that yes, the gas supply has been on the decline for you.
So we can watch
Years now.
it what they're generating, or
Yes, and I've had recent conversations with the operators and the managers of waste management, and they project that the gas supply will, continue on the trajectory that we've seen, but continue to decline. And that is that decline is forecasted in our BPA contracts for that resource. So it's reflected there.
okay.
Mhm.
But our contract ends 2 years into the new rate period.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm glad you're talking to BPA about that.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
we'll probably have more conversations about that issue specifically.
Yeah.
What options we have.
Yeah, we'll want to start considering.
Has anyone around Waste Management has a separate company that does, it's a subsidiary,
Yes.
and they're all over the country doing this. And lots of landfills are now in decline, and have any of them end up using natural gas to keep running the generators to help places, or you ever heard anything about
Not
that?
that I know of.
I haven't heard.
The permits are all there for burning. Yeah, it's just something to think about. Could it be converted? I know it's expensive, but I mean, if you have no hours, I mean, 5 megawatts power.
So Jamie, do you think that if if it adversely impacts our tier one ability to have tier one power, we should just terminate that contract and maybe even terminate it early, because they could sell to BGE, right? Really?
That's an option that we plan to bring back to you
Okay,
for some more in-depth conversation, because we do have, we need to weigh those options, and some of the details are yet to be revealed by BPA on some of these options, but
and the landfill power might be attractive to PGE or even to a direct service industry because of their environmental.
or even to waste
Correct.
management themselves. So that's another development recently. So,
Really? Okay.
yeah, so we have some
I-
further conversation to
We
dig
could-
into this and our
I
options,
would
and
be interested to hear from you what the
We've been-
choices are and your recommendation.
We've been talking about this and we're just kind of waiting for BPA to kind of solidify their.
yeah, it's coming into focus. I want to come back with some kind of fully formed options with some certainty to give you. Don't have that quite yet.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yep.
You're up next.
And
Anna,
then,
so.
You're still here in new business. Yeah, to talk about Oregon Clean Fuels Program.
Okay. So several years ago, 2015, in fact, Oregon legislature passed Senate Bill 324, allowing DEQ to implement the Clean Fuels Program, which is designed to reduce the carbon intensity of transportation fuels in Oregon by regulating producers and importers of gasoline and diesel, and also by offering credits to credit generators like an electric utility that that offset the carbon intensity of the fossil fuels. And as an electric utility, McMinnville receives these credits on an annual basis. It's a calculation that involves a number of EVs in our service territory and the calculated carbon intensity for the power that serves our territory. And excuse me. And for the last 4 years, we've received these credits, and there's a market for them. The regulated parties look to purchase credits to fulfill their obligations. And we've realized some revenue from the sale of these credits. For 2023, calendar year 2023, McMinnville receives 1,650 clean fuel credits. We also have 214 left over from 2022. So I'm here this evening to request the commission declare as surplus those 1,650 clean fuel credits and redeclare the 214 from 2022. And authorize the general manager to approve a sale. Should we, find one that suits McMinnville?
Jamie, excuse me, was this the one with the strange system where you had to offer it on the state things, the state market first, and then, okay, so John will just do it that way.
Well, that's one option. It's called the credit clearance market, and that's a DEQ kind of.
But didn't we have, last time we had to do that first or something, didn't we? I think.
We didn't have to, we
Oh.
had to wait, if we offer them into the clearance market, we had to wait for a period of time
Okay.
for that market to clear. And then they were released and we could pursue another.
Okay, but we didn't have to
sale.
go into the market. Okay, great.
Mhm.
Thank you.
And so, what we have, so the sales we have made have all been within the DEQ portal. On their, they have a buy sell board where you can advertise your credits and find a counterparty, and it's all pre-approved within the system, vetted, and makes the transaction
Great.
much more straightforward.
Thank you.
Mhm.
So I'd entertain a motion to.
Yeah.
or
I
you
move
wanna read it?
resolution.
If you're inclined to.
Yeah,
To move
please.
forward, I can read the resolution by title. It's resolution number 2024-6, a resolution on the city of McMinnville, acting by and through its Water Line Commission declaring clean fuel credits surplus and authorizing and delegating to the general manager authority to sell these same clean fuel credits. It's 2024-6.
I would move for the adoption of this resolution.
Second,
I have a motion from Commissioner Gormley, a second from Commissioner Tankersley, and I would ask Trina to poll the commission.
Yes, Mayor Dropkin,
Aye.
Commissioner Tate,
Aye.
Commissioner Tankersley,
aye,
Commissioner Gormley,
Aye.
Commissioner Christensen.
Aye.
Thank you, and the resolution is adopted unanimously. We will now move into another action request. Do you want to stay up here and present this as well?
Okay, so the next item is requesting the commission to set a public hearing for June 18th to consider the draft integrated resource plan. In August 2023, we engaged with EES Consulting to develop an integrated resource plan for our utility. The IRP is a tool used to aid in our power resource forecasting, load forecasting and resource planning to meet loads for a longer term period. The plan is developed for the next 20 years. We have a draft and the consultant will be here in June to share that with the commission. We'd like to capture that in a public hearing in an effort to, formalize that process and also to provide an opportunity for public comment. Knowing that it'll be the first presentation of a draft to the public, we would anticipate continuing that hearing into July to allow for, longer time frame for input and digesting that work product and then, move to adoption once we've satisfied that.
I'd move, as staff has requested, that we set June 18th and meeting in July to deal with this issue.
second,
Sam, you have certain language you want used?
Well, just understand that's directing staff to publish notice of the meeting. For that
Hold the
purpose.
hearing.
I have a motion from Commissioner Gormley and a second from Commissioner Tankersley. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed say nay. And the motion passes unanimously. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And next we'll go to Trina McManus, clerk, to talk about a water rate hearing.
Yeah, thank you. McMinnville Water and Light is currently working with a consultant Utility Financial Solutions to perform a water cost of service analysis and recommend a rate design. Staff has submitted all of the data that they have requested, and they are currently putting that into the model. We should have preliminary results ready to share and discuss with the commission in July. So staff is requesting that the commission set a public hearing on water rates for July 16th, 2024 at 5 p.m. Direct staff to advertise the hearing in English and Spanish. The expectation is that we will present the results in July and then request that the commission continue the public hearing to a later date for public input and also to have the formal rate recommendation at a later date.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion from Commissioner Gormley. Do you want to read specific language?
I think Ms. McManus covered it in her recitation.
Okay, thank you. And a second from Chair Tate. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed say nay. And that motion passes unanimously. And thank you very much. And I'm sorry, I didn't say utility rate analyst when I introduced you, which is clearly the capacity in which you were presenting that information. I would now welcome Marcy Humley, our Human Resources Manager, up to talk about new commissioner onboarding.
Thank you. So a draft onboarding policy was introduced to the board in October 2023. We received feedback from the commission at that time, and staff has worked to revise that draft policy. And that's what you have before you tonight is the revised policy.
So I still don't have it. I've started my system 3 times and it's still coming up as corrupted. So I'm wondering if, Trina, if you could email that to me.
I will do it right now.
Thank you.
So in the packet, we have the policy. It's a 3-page policy. I also have some other documents attached to it. So one would be a sample of what a resource book might include and what that table of contents might look like. And then I have a sample of an orientation day and what that schedule might look like, just to kind of give people an idea what that might be. And this is based on orientations that we've done with staff. And then the last page is a sample of a table of contents for a board policy. And so I believe we don't have a board policy. That would be a useful tool for a new commissioner coming on board, and in addition to all board members. So looking for feedback on the policy and looking to seek feedback on whether the board has an interest in developing a written board policy.
Thank you. Let's open this up for everyone to provide comment.
When you say written board policy, a board policy about onboarding? Sorry.
Know about how the board functions. So
I mean, would be a single policy about board operations? I'm sorry, I'm just not following.
it'd be a document that talks about how the meetings are run and how the board interacts with the general manager and with the clerk and with the general counsel and staff, that kind of thing. It could have whatever we want to put in it. Onboarding would go in there also. I see a lot of utilities with the board policy manual. So this one is very similar to the one that eWeb has, and I know Springfield Utility has one as well.
What's your thoughts, Tom? Haven't had one for.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good idea. I really do. We haven't had one, not a formal one, sort of. You know, we had a former mayor who just sort of kept us in line. So I think it's a good idea to have it. I think it'd be productive for us to discuss it too, just to sort of get these things out in the open. And I really like the orientation policy. And on a slight tangent here, Joey is taking some NWPPA classes for board members, and I learned at the most recent NWPPA meeting that any board member can use Jody's class because they're video classes and they've been downloaded. And so I think Trina is she's the kind of the clearinghouse of that. So I would, and Jody, I won't put you on this. Well, I will put you on the spot. How, I mean, are they helpful?
So I've taken one,
Okay.
and it was primarily focused on co-ops to kind of talk about the budgeting process. The facilitator was from a co-op, and so they talked about that process. There was some helpful information. I think I've signed up for 5, I believe, or 4 or 5. All of them will be virtual. All I will have to, I will not be able to join live. I'll be reviewing it after the fact, which is what they've offered, because it's during standing meetings that I have. And I do think it's important. I also think that it might be beneficial to take a look at the classes that are offered and say, these are recommended in the first 2 years of a commissioner's tenure, to say these are, you know, sort of foundational training, or we'll work with the commissioner to determine, to help them pick, because there's quite a variety of training. And if you're new to the commission, you're not really sure which one you should be taking. So I think that having a little bit of help navigating that might be helpful.
That's a great idea. I think these things will be evolving and there'll be new classes. And I like your idea of us helping, or someone helping guide the new commissioners, and NWPPA can be contacted, the training people, and you can get more details about this. And I would appreciate your feedback after you take on a couple more, so we can get back to them and tell them how to improve them for communities like us.
Yeah, and since I didn't have a chance to, I'm now looking at this, I remember we talked about it earlier. One of the things you might want to consider is adding in, and I don't know if it's here, and I know this is primarily onboarding, but there's also an opportunity to show where commissioners may have other duties as assigned. So it would be the manager's review process, the audit committee. So there are other ways that commissioners can be involved in, and you would want during the orientation to highlight that as well.
Okay.
And I'm a firm believer that documents like this are essential, because if when a new commissioner comes on board, this should be the document they look to when they have questions as they're navigating the sort of day-to-day operations of the commission. So I think as much information that you can put in there, the more the better, I think, because it shouldn't be a one and done document. It should be a living document for people to be referencing. I also might say, this is the other thing, is the alphabet soup of life, right? Like there's a lot of alphabets involved in this work. And so, and we speak in those terms, and it can be very confusing for someone who's new to the commission. And I also challenge us to be better at community engagement, so that we don't speak in the alphabet soup of what we do, but that we call out the name itself so that people can engage with this and not have to wonder what the heck we're talking about. So, but some sort of glossary that would say that these are the terms you're going to hear a lot.
That's
good.
Great suggestion. I love that when earlier Jamie said removal of contract demand qualities, and then gave the acronym immediately after. That was great. Commissioner Gormley?
Mayor Remy, what is the procedure these days with the council president? Do you change every year, every 2 years, or what?
Every 2 years.
Okay, so I think having the council president, especially in light of what the charter says, be involved in this, and as you so is it elected, or is it kind of just
It's elected by the council.
Okay, so you could anticipate who might be elected. So I'm thinking this gives somebody 2 years to kind of get up to speed, just to show up here and run a meeting or something like that. I mean, I think that's a great idea that way. The other thing is, in all your research and reading, the mayor pretty much has autonomy in appointing the board with confirmation by the council. And does it talk about trying to find people that fit certain categories of backgrounds? Is there mentioned anything you read with the Springfield or the other stuff about? That's been our kind of our practice over the years, to try and find people with different backgrounds to come from accounting to construction to timber. And
This is focused on orientation after appointment.
okay, but I just had a question in her research if you've seen anything.
Yeah,
like that.
I haven't seen anything like that.
But there is that policy. There is a policy thing, but I think you're right. That means the mayor's decision.
Yeah.
And Remy, I have a question for you about the council president. We certainly can't require them to do this, but I could see where you might have so much going on in the city where the council president says, I don't have time to do this.
You know, you've said that a number of times over the last couple of years. And I don't actually really understand the base of it. I mean, our council president currently has always been available if I haven't been. I think that with these, you know, I think that there's an expectation to be set with both the commission and the council about what those expectations are, and that's why we're both organizations are working on developing an onboarding so that there's not the type of removal, right, that there was historically, like when I was council president and I wasn't regularly integrated into this organization or integrated into this organization at all as council president. And so, no, we also can't force a commissioner to go do any of these things. And actually, I think that's some of my concern. Yes, I want a policy. A little of my concern with this document is that this feels like it's putting a lot on the new commissioner as opposed to a lot onto the organization that is trying to onboard this new commissioner. But what were you aiming towards there?
Well, I was aiming toward that we would offer it, but would not. I mean, and what I'm talking about with the city is the council president and all the councilors have land use things, city budget things. They have a lot of things already. And I think, and your council meetings go a lot longer than our meetings. So it's just, I just was trying to be respectful of the time of the council president and not make that person think we had a strong expectation they would do this.
Yeah, I mean, it is a tremendous lift. That's kind of what I try to communicate out very regularly, especially when people are thinking about running for that office. And I like to tell the story of when I was applying for the planning commission and I asked, what's the realistic time commitment? Well, what they told me was far less than what it was. When I considered running for council and I interviewed people and I asked what the time commitment was, well, it turned out being far less. And I would say even in my extensive conversations with former Mayor Hill, perhaps undersold the overall time commitment of this position. So it is a big lift. And I do think it's important we set that expectation. And I do think it's important that this is available to the council president. And kind of by extension, really the council. Because the council president could be anyone and is expected to rotate. And so I think some of the historic, some of the work we've just done recently to kind of start knitting our two organizations here back into more cohesive working relationship, it also includes specifically this, which is the education of commissioners about how water and light is a part of the city, and it includes education for the counselors about the independent function and nature of McMinnville Water and Light. So I think this can be a really useful tool for both organizations. And typically the council seems, at least their current composition, is more than happy to get more training. We had our land use training the other day. And at the end of it, not only did everybody say they loved it, we decided to do invite them back for a second. We didn't get through it. So I haven't experienced the pushback on additional training. Yeah, please.
I'm sorry.
No, please.
You're done. I was just gonna go back to the point you were saying about when somebody looks at this document, when they're thinking about coming on and how much of a lift that is. And I feel like I agree with you. I mean, I think we don't want to chase people away by the sheer volume of things that we expect them to get involved with. But on the other side of it, I also think somebody who's signing up for this position needs to understand, like maybe you didn't get all the information you needed, how big of a job it is. And I don't think we want to undersell that either. So I don't know where the compromise is there, perhaps adding either some time, like you'd expect this to take 4 hours, or you'd expect this to be you know, one day, or you'd expect this to be completed over 6 months or something, maybe would make it look a little less daunting to somebody, or somehow articulating that you can kind of do this at your own pace, so that somebody doesn't feel like they're gonna sign on and the next day they have to spend the first 6 months of their life at Water and Light. You know, it's just like, how do you figure that out? But I think those are all considerations that we all have to take into play, because I think it goes back to our conversations also just about, you know, we want great people on here, but some people have real time constraints or real challenges with like having childcare or having a job, like, you know, some other people here, that you need to have some flexibility. So I don't know how, it's a work in progress. I think we're gonna kind of figure that out as we continue to develop it, right?
So Marcy, sorry.
We'll go Commissioner Gormley, Commissioner Christensen, and then I have another thought too.
Mayor Remy, you remember being on the planning commission and interviewing, you know, people, maybe as mayor or counselor, the question you always ask is, have you attended a meeting? And as you know, lots of people, they apply for something, but they've never been there. So I think it would be just a basic thing to encourage the council. I know we've got quorum issues, but just come and sit through some of our meetings to see the interplay and what we deal with and stuff. There's a lot to be learned just by watching a meeting.
Yeah, I know a number of our counselors watch the meetings.
Okay.
Yeah, they don't come in
I
for
can't
them,
tell.
but they watch them.
Sure.
Yeah, I know council president does, and I know Counselor Geary watches them as well. I'm not sure about the rest of the
Okay.
council currently, but yes, I mean, I think it's really important. I think it's you know, basing on my own experience, and I've been in service with the city from 2011. And as I've shared in here multiple times, the majority of what I've learned about Water and Light has just been in the last 2 years. And I do think that's problematic. So I'm hoping this helps us address that. Commissioner Christensen?
Well, I was just gonna say that when Mayor Hill invited me to apply and to the commission, he said it's gonna take you 4 years to figure out what's going on. That was about right. But I think I like what Commissioner Tate said, that we're not expecting someone to read the manual and be an expert, right? The idea is that it's a supportive document to help them navigate, I would say, their first year, that we're not expecting, you know, complete and full understanding of this information. The importance of for me, the commission is that there's work that has a life cycle that keeps coming back to us. I'll use the budgeting as an example, right? That's not a one and done. It continues to come back, and we're evolving as a commission on how we want to receive that information. So we would expect a new commissioner to have a lot of opportunity to ask questions, but also to have a document that they could refer to say, hey, can I find it in the manual or the orientation guide, or do I need to have further discussion? So that's how I see this document. But I like the idea of sort of putting timing, you know, that they're setting clear expectation that we're not expecting you to have it all, you know, memorized and there's a test on day 2. Give it some grace to it in learning the process.
I wanted to add, I don't see a watershed tour mentioned in here, unless I missed it.
I think I have.
There was some tours of plants and facilities, but
tours.
wasn't called out.
Yeah, number
Yeah.
10, tours of the
Uh-huh.
watershed, electric system and water
Oh,
system.
it was called out.
Oh, I see that bullet point
Yeah.
now. Thank you.
Yeah,
My
but-
pardon.
And to Julie's, oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead,
No,
after you.
I thought you were finished. I'm
It's
sorry.
a-
No.
The other thing, just to go back to the city a little bit, what I think would be to expand on the resource book. It says City of McMinnville key information, and above that, it says city charter. I kind of think I think that's a really important piece, and I would love to see it a little bit more. Like, I don't want to just give somebody the charter, right? And then enjoy. It is great late night reading, let me tell you.
Yeah.
But you know, I think that making sure that, I think that's very important for the new commissioners to understand the connected relationship.
And I think that it needs to be expanded enough that as they read it, that there's some side notes that explain, you know, what certain things mean and stuff. If it, you know, it's not clear. Reading a charter is not an easy thing to do. So I mean, that might be something to think about.
Yeah.
I mean, it might be the whole thing, but you know, might be some notes about how does this really affect me, or how does it play out, or whatever. I mean,
You know, having Sam maybe give some context would be good unless they're going through that.
And I had under the 9.5 general counsel providing additional training on the city charter and meeting laws that are specific to water and light. But we could
my
expand it
concern for
beyond
that is that, you know, we've had some grayness that at least this part of this board thought might have been gray, and you know, a horse race, so to speak, somebody saying, this is what this means, now this is what this means, and I think to clarify some of that stuff. I see Sam, he knows what I'm talking
Go ahead.
Back to Jody's point, about helping people, I think that the manual itself should be very clear that if a new commissioner or an existing commissioner has a question, or, you know, is confused and doesn't want to bring it up at the meeting, they could talk to John, and John would either answer it or direct you to the person he thought you should talk to. So I see that spelled out at least.
Nice, thank you.
Then I have a question about the pre-appointment period in here.
Mhm.
It doesn't seem very reality-based, right? Like there's no, the prospective commissioners, well, there's no. That's not, this is not really a thing that has ever existed historically, et cetera. And I think on the second point, anyone interested in the utility industry is welcome to observe and attend. And I just kind of don't understand what that is reflective of, or how that serves the organization.
Mhm. And so I don't know quite what I would say about that, except for I imagine that there's this period of time when a person hasn't been appointed, but they're curious, and how does that look? And I'm not sure exactly how that looks. So what if a person is running for mayor and they want information, how do they go about gaining that information? And so I wrote in here that they could contact the general manager, and that he would share general information about the utility. And I would imagine that if it's I don't know that I understand what the process would be, or that the mayor would have for just general commissioners. And so whatever that looks like, we could put that in here to address how they gain information. But that was really my goal, was how do we give information to that person who's running for mayor?
Would
And I
the
don't know-
orientation packet not serve as an information source without opening the general manager to, you know, I mean, there could
And-
be 30 people that run, right? There could be,
Hopefully not.
but there could be. And so this as a policy would call out that essentially makes the general manager obligated to sit down with anybody that is interested in either a position on the commission or a position with the city, right? And that just feels very broad to me. Whereas if this document is supposed to orient a person, whether they were elected yet or not, or appointed yet or not, it seems as though the document would serve that purpose.
I don't know. I picture people coming to the general manager for a lot of information, and it could be just a person off the street who wants to know more about the utility, and John engages that person in a conversation about what we do here and things like that. I've seen it here. And so I
wonder
picture that.
if I could, Mayor, can I speak?
Go ahead, Commissioner.
I wonder, this feels to me out of place, and I think I wasn't, when I read it, I sort of said, oh, it's an information. It feels out of place in this document, and it feels better suited for community engagement conversation. So how does the community, no matter the position they hold, a candidate or a newly elected official yet to take office, or a resident or a new person, how do they come and receive information from Water and Light? I think that's, I appreciate what you're saying here. It's like they're creating a communication tool for somebody that it doesn't yet hold office or is exploring to hold office, but I'm not sure it fits in this document.
So maybe it's a board policy as opposed to being in the orientation packet, because this is really for someone who's
This is an
taking a
orientation
position,
packet,
right?
right?
Or it's a community engagement policy. So how does, the tools that community reaches into and pulls information out of Water and Light, what does that process look like? Depending on what position you may hold, right? Because this to me feels this document is being developed for onboarding a new commissioner, not giving general information of how the commission runs.
I think that's fair.
I think
That's a good.
that is, thank you. I think Commissioner Christensen said it better than I did.
Oh.
So, yeah.
And so I'll remove this section from the document.
I think it
Is that
makes
what I'm hearing?
sense, but
Okay.
make sure to make a note that we want to look at it as a policy or for some other area.
And so then onboarding would start when a person is,
I think
Appointed
after
to
they've been
the-
confirmed.
okay.
I mean, anything before that is kind of premature, right? I mean, there can be some informal, but don't you think that a confirmation would be the starting point?
But going to Kathy's point is that would be your community engagement, or to Jody's.
Yeah,
point,
yeah.
That's your
Yeah.
community.
Absolutely.
piece.
And then,
Within the
Marcy,
community.
when an elected official takes oath, then they become positioned to go through the onboarding process.
Mhm.
yeah.
Okay, I think that makes sense.
Okay, great. Mm,
Any other feedback for the?
I think I had one more note. I'm just cruising it real quick.
It looks great, though. I mean, it's a lot of
Thank you.
work, so I appreciate
Yeah, you bet.
everything you put into it.
Yeah. I think we got. Oh, I did, the question was, I don't see it right now, but it was. It says that the general manager will tell the new commissioner how to organize travel or something of that nature if they're traveling on behalf of the utility. I thought it would be more useful to say like kind of if maybe there's not a travel policy, but if there was a travel policy or how does that work functionally, as opposed to saying that you'll talk to the general manager about how travel happens, that it says, and then whatever the standard is.
Mhm.
And I don't think that there necessarily is one right now. But that drive towards one, that the utility will purchase the airline tickets on your behalf, or you're expected to purchase airline tickets on your own and ask for reimbursement. I mean, I would veer towards the former rather than the latter, especially because, can just open up, well, gosh, there was nothing available in Coach, I mean, so, but I think that how spelling out how specifically that happens would be great.
Don't we have a standard practice for that?
We have a standard practice
So
that
I
we
would-
utilize.
I would put a reference standard practice and include it then. That way we only have to change one document when we change that.
Okay.
And I think what I see when people have traveled is that Trina or John are a support to them on figuring out how to do the reimbursement, things like that.
I think what I'm ultimately driving at is there were a number of things and kind of the general manager will tell you. And so what I'm driving at is trying to get more, so that I onboard and I read this and I don't go, okay, well, let me add that to the list for the general
Right.
manager conversations, but instead I have direct access.
Yeah, we can include the standard, we can name the standard practice in the policy, and then we can include that in the resource packet. That'd be it.
That's it for me.
All right.
Anyone else?
Well, thank you all.
Yeah.
That was
Okay,
very
do you
helpful.
need any-
Appreciate the work you're doing on this.
No, I think just, I think Ms. Humley has kind of the consensus and direction for the board. No formal action needs to be taken.
Sure. All right, well, why don't we take a 10-minute, thank you very much. Why don't we take a 10-minute break so everybody can get a little lunch or dinner, whatever it is for you.